feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it's sink or swim, only option is to win.
Hey everyone, welcome to the post-show wrap-up of The Shrimp Tank. I'm your host, Rich Jensen, along with my co-host, David Sims, and our special guest, Dennis Wilson of Wilson and Haubert Law Firms. Every week on the podcast, we try and do a post-show wrap-up to highlight some of the best things we learned while talking on the podcast. If you want to hear the entire version, go to arkansas.shrimptankpodcast.com, and you can also download it on iTunes. So it was a great broadcast.
Yeah, it was a great show. Great thing about it is you can get a lot of free legal advice. Everybody loves free legal advice. I mean, you don't want to go to a lawyer. You're afraid you're going to get your bank account sucked dry, you know? So it was great. Thanks for that time, Dennis. One of the things we asked you on the podcast was, what was one of the wisest things, one of the things that greatest pearls of wisdom you learned from one of your successful business owner clients?
Yes, and I said was that you need to learn to trust yourself. And by that, I meant that you need to know that you're competent. And when you are competent, you need to be confident that you're competent and to proceed, with that premise.
And then we followed up with a second question: what's the most unwise thing you've seen a business client do?
And I said, trust yourself.
Yeah. So the good ones trusted themselves when they should, and the bad ones, the ones who made mistakes,
trust themselves when they shouldn't. Yes.
I guess the key is have the wisdom to know when to do which.
That's right.
You really need to know your subject area and know it well. Right.
We also spent some time talking about the need to be nimble as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, responding to changes. You used an interesting phrase. Share with our listeners what you were talking about then.
Yeah, I called it guerrilla warfare. You need to be able to you've got to change on a dime. You've got to be able to know that just because it worked before, that it may not work now. So your business plan is always going to be in flux. The way you do business may always be in flux. You've got to be able to change. And the circumstances on the ground dictate what you do many times. So you have to be flexible.
And sometimes we have, as entrepreneurs, we just have our heads down just trying to do business, and we look up and, hey, I'm on a different battlefield now.
Your competition has left you in the dirt and you didn't even know that you didn't know they existed.
Yeah. Right. On the podcast, you also talked about the differences in estate planning and elder law planning, and shared a lot of really good things that we can't go into on the video. But one of the things you talked about was how estate planning is not just about transferring, but it's also about protection of assets.
Yes.
Talk a little bit more about that.
Whenever we do estate planning, whenever I'm talking with an estate planning client, they're asking me questions about wealth transfer, but we're always thinking about wealth preservation. How do we hold on to this wealth? How do we get it to the next generation? But how do we even have anything left for the next generation? And most of the time, it's the ability to listen to them, to see what they're wanting, but at the same time, to let them understand that there's some things that they need to grasp that they're not grasping. And I use the illustration of, when a guy goes into a hardware store to order a 1/8 inch drill bit, he actually wants a 1/8 inch hole somewhere. He really doesn't want a drill bit. So you've got to kind of figure out, what are we doing here, and help them understand the process. And many times you have to expand their mind past the limitations they've put on it whenever they come to see you,
right?
About what they should be looking for,
right?
Well, there's all sorts of great information in the podcast. I encourage you, go to arkansas.shrimptankpodcast.com, listen to it, download it on iTunes, get that free legal advice David was referring about. Dennis, in case someone they haven't heard the podcast yet, they've seen this video, they want to know how to get a hold of you, what would be the best way to do that?
Yes, whlawoffices.com or Dennis@whlawoffices.com, and 501-372-1212.
All right. And probably Cecilia will answer the phone, and they'll get a nice, pleasant experience right then and there.
Absolutely.
All right. Hey, next week on the podcast, we're going to have Frank Lawrence with the Little Rock Athletic Club, CEO over there. You won't want to miss it. Learn all sorts of great things. And, hey, maybe he'll tell us how to get a free membership somehow.
We like it free here.
There we do. Until then, have a safe week. And remember, to become a shark, we all start out a shrimp.